My name is Ewan. I'm the main developer behind QuasaiCrystal, and thank you very much for purchasing. I really do appreciate it. This video will be a full demonstration of everything that QuasaiCrystal can do. I'll be going going over every single menu, every single control, every single parameter that's also listed in the manual. If you'd rather not listen to me talk about this and you'd rather read the manual, feel free to go to that as well. It goes through every single control and what it does. And in this video as well, I'll be going over OSC compatibility and how you can control this XY grid with an OSC controller like Touch OSC or something similar. Anyway, so this is the main menu. So what we can do here is we can control the XY grid, which is where we'll morph each of the 4 granular engines. So this is a 4-channel granular synth. This is also limited to 4 voices at the minute, unfortunately. I'll be looking to make this a bit more CPU efficient and adding more voices as time goes on. But yeah, we can blend between the 4 granular synths, each of which has their own 4 voices, 16 voices in total technically, but only 4 notes playing at once. So we can morph between them with the XY grid, and we've got a couple of controls at each 4 corners as well. Light show control, which just controls the brightness of these grids. A main volume, which is pretty self-explanatory, the main volume output of this plugin. A stereo effect, so this is just a simple hat effect, a delay on the right ear, which just gives you a bit of stereo, and a reverb mix control. So to first get started with this thing, I've actually got a MIDI keyboard hooked up, and as you can see, I've already got a sample loaded into Granular Engine A. If you go to the Granular Engine tab, we'll see we've got 4 granular engines. They're samples. We can turn them on and off with this toggle, and we can also see all the granular controls just to the right of that as well. So each of these is exactly the same, so we'll only be going over one, but obviously A, B, C, D are sent to A, B, C and D listed at the top left of each of the main window morphing engines. To load a sample in, unfortunately we haven't got drag and drop yet, but what we can do is hit this file icon and load in a sample, and then when we turn it on as well, we'll see that this whole thing lights up so we can see whether we're active or not. These 3 are disabled at the minute. Then we can choose our start and end point by changing the start and end parameters, or we can just move it by clicking and dragging. But anyway, we can control the gain of this sample with the gain parameter. Surprise, surprise. Then we go to the grain tab. We can control the shape of the grain with this function. We can change the length of the grain as well in milliseconds. So as you can see, they're sort of going a little bit sporadic over here. But we can change the length of them up to 400 milliseconds. If you'd like me to modify any of these parameters for you, feel free to give me a message, and I'll sort them right out. As mentioned, we can read from the sample in reverse if we want to, and we could add a spray can effect so it actually randomizes the position and the timing of each of the grains, so we can have them all clumped up in one grain, so we can move around, or we can sort of add a spray. I almost always have this up, but if you want to do anything rhythmic or just want to do something interesting, obviously you can bring that back down to 0 as well. To change the pitch of our sample, we can go up or down an octave. We can go up or down in semitones. So here we start off with C. Any sample you load is automatically assigned to the C note, and we can go up in semitones here. And we've also got a fine control, up 1 semitone, up down 1 semitone as well, so we can have a bit more of a finer control over the pitch. So that's all the granular engines. When we've got a couple of samples loaded in, we can morph between them. So as you can see, I've just loaded up a couple more samples, and when I hit MIDI notes on my keyboard, they should all appear in their designated areas, and I can then morph between them with the XY grid in the center. And then if one doesn't tickle my fancy, for example, A seems a little bit too stuttery, I can just change that on the fly. Perfect. Now, all of these granular effects are then sent through the effect window, which is the second one here. So this top main one here is a spectral gate. If you have any of my patches, you'll know how much I love spectral processing. I've gone for a linear view as it allows you to see the harmonics a lot more clearer, but I think it's just a really, really neat sound that should be incorporated in any plugin. Next up is spectral rain. It was in the Freaky table, EB Freaky table if you saw that, but this is a more simplified version. We can toggle it on. As you'll see, everything sort of lights up when we hit this toggle. We can add a decay to these spectral rains. I'm going to call them raindrops. And we can add a decay. We can increase the width from going really, really thin to really, really quite wide. And we can control the amount as well. So the higher this is, there's more of a gate on the rains. We get less. And then the lower this is, we get more. So I'll show this in action. It's a great sound when paired with reverb, the gate, and the OTT. You get kind of a bubbly, sort of plucky Nintendo sound, which is really, really cool. And then paired with like an external reverb like Valhalla or something. It's incredible. It's a really, really funky sound, and I really like this effect. Next up is a very, very simple tape emulation engine. We have the speed and amount, and then we have a noise, which we can hear constantly, and then a subtle drive option, which is just a tape emulation, kind of distortion. But I'll go ahead and show them now. They're all very subtle, but they are absolutely destroyed when you put it through the OTT, which we'll get to in a minute. And I feel like they sound nice when paired with a nice reverb as well. As if you've got too much tape, it can sort of mess up. As always, you can use isotope vinyl or something else at the end of your chain just to make it sound really, really interesting. Then we have a tape delay. So this is a very, very simple delay. We have a time, we have a feedback up to 500 milliseconds time, by the way, sorry. And we have a low pass in between each delay time as well. So you can have a sort of low pass effect. And we have a stereo spread as well. So the left and right channel will be randomly allocated a different delay time just to give us a bit more stereo randomness. Then we can increase that low pass so we don't get any of the effect. You can increase the feedback and the time. Then finally, we have an OTT, as mentioned earlier on. This is on technically all the time, but we can enable it by increasing this wet amount. Cool. Now, the main morph window is really, really fun when we use our main mouse to control it. But if we want this to be done automatically, we can go to our orbits tab and we can enable it by simply hitting this on-off toggle. We can control the speed of each one as well. So, we can add a little bit of subtle noise, so it sort of has a bit of randomness to it. We can do this for both sides as well, of course. We can have really, really fast wide changes. Or really, really slow white changes or whatnot. And each one will also bounce as well. So you'll see that it bounces off the wall slightly as well. So we don't get ever any outside effects, which is really, really interesting. And then we can hit the crazy option just for an absolutely crazy, crazy effect. It is very, very fast. It does make a really interesting pad sound, which is really, really random. It's just an absolute mishmash of everything. And we can also reset the phase of each one. So if when not in crazy mode, we can reset the phase of each of our sine waves. The noise isn't reset here though, by the way. And then we can also flip as well. So we get a flipped version of what we wanted, which is also really handy. This is great for some randomization and just getting some dynamic pads and then taking it further with resampling or some other kind of manipulation. And finally, we have our settings tab. So this has quite a few things going on. We have a contact and a bug report button. If you hit those, it's going to open your web browser and it will show you the best place to contact me and report any bugs. If you find any, do fill in the Google forum. If you do find any bugs, please let me know. Even if it's a simple crash, just let me know what was going on, what DAW and whatnot. That really, really helps the development. And I will be constantly checking it to make sure that it is as efficient as possible. And of course, the contact as well. If you need a hand or if you need anything to do with refunds or anything, give me a shout on the contact button. To test if we've got MIDI, we have a controller and a MIDI in as well, so you can see which voices are being used, which is really, really handy. And we also have a envelope control. So if we want to just very quickly change the way the MIDI behaves. So I didn't really want to go for an ADSR because I feel like this is kind of a pad device. If you want to use ARPs, I guess you could, but you can increase your attack and decay and overall smoothness of those, which is also really, really handy. We can change what array style we want. So if we go to our samples at the minute, they are currently points, but we can change them to be Bezier curves, or we can change them to be polygons, just depending on what you think looks better. Then we have a reverb control. We can go through a bunch of different presets that are included with the reverb that I'm using inside this engine. And then we can tweak and control all of the parameters that come with that reverb. And finally, we have a scope. So this allows us to see what's coming out of the plugin, and just a pretty decent little visualizer at the end of the chain. Sweet. So that is pretty much all of EB QuasaiCrystal's controls gone over. That's everything you really need to know to get started and get going. If there's anything else you'd like added, or if there's anything you'd like to question me about, please hit the contact button. Again, it will take you right to where you can contact me best. And if you've got any bugs, as always, hit the bug report. Now, to get OSC port working, what you're going to need to do is download Touch OSC or something similar. There are some free alternatives that maybe work. I'm not entirely sure. Give me a DM if you want to hand setting it up. But with Touch OSC, what you can do is you can go to multi XY. So that allows you to control the XY grid, the main XY grid here, the morphing one, without needing to use the orbits tab. So we can actually turn that off. And then what you can do is when you go to your OSC, select your computer's IP address. So at the minute, mine is set in. Select a port. It needs to be 4 digits, so 2004, for example. Hit enter. And then when you go to OSC and go to multi XY, for example, you should now be able to control it remotely. You can also do this with the sensors preset as well, which is included, which allows you to take gyroscopic information and connect that up as well. As always, if you need a hand getting that set up, just give me a shout. To smoothen it, increase the smoothening, and you can flip as well, so you get a flipped view, which is also really handy for live performances. Yeah, so that's pretty much all of EB QuasaiCrystal. But yeah, thank you so much for your support, and I hope you enjoy it.